Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, but more importantly, thanks for your support this year. It was an interesting season, to say the least. Lots of trials and tribulations, some good times, some bad times, and the support of our fan base and the support of our media was appreciated through the whole thing. This season was one of change, one of looking towards the future. We saw some positive things in that direction. We learned a lot about ourselves personally and professionally, positive and negative, on things we can improve on. And all in all, it's unfortunate that we're not continuing to play, and we have to find a way to push forward this summer and get back to work next September. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Hey, Doug, I think it was in training camp that you said, third place would be nice in the division. You finished just outside the wild card. How does the season, as you look at it as a whole, compare to how you thought it would go? Is this a positive that you were close to where you thought you were, or do you think it could have been better?
I think when I look back on those comments, it was more where we fit on, where other teams are in their growth process. I thought that, I think I might have said Dallas and Colorado seemed to be a half a letter grade or full letter grade ahead of us. I got to be honest with you, at that time I thought Winnipeg was going to trade Scheifele and Hellebuck, and they went a different direction, and that obviously changed the outlook of what they were looking to accomplish this season and moving forward. But when I look at our team, I was probably a little too honest on where I thought we were going to be. I was trying to give everyone a look into how I viewed things, and it was brought up on a few different occasions that I didn't believe in this team or I didn't trust this team, and that wasn't what I was trying to say or get at. But I thought the guys played well. I thought, we're right dead smack in the middle of the league. If we're in the other conference, we're still playing. But we're not. We're in the West. I had a meeting with our pro scouts today, just projecting what it's going to take next year. I think the reason there's a less point total in the Eastern Conference is because you look at the teams that have been rebuilding or retooling. They're 6, 7, 8 years into it, and they all had about the same amount of points we did, maybe 4 or 5 less, maybe some 10 less. But there seems to be, the Western Conference has teams earlier in the rebuild process, which means there's more points needed to get there because they're distributing more points through the Western Conference that they play more often. But with our team, I thought that. As I said, I thought we saw some really good things. I was extremely proud of the way the guys played against the top teams. And we have to grow and learn why we can play at a certain level against a certain group of player and organization and team, and what we have to do to prepare and to execute better against a team that maybe we don't have that fear factor in. And I'm hoping those are learning things that we're going to pick up.
Doug, can you just clarify what's happening with the head coaching position?
Yes, so I talked to Drew actually a while ago, recently in the last week or so, told him that he's going to be a candidate for the head coaching job. I feel that for the process, it's necessary to interview a few people. But what I told him was, when we made the coaching change, I was creating a list, and the list was deep and extensive. And as I watched him perform and I watched our team perform, I started to cross names off that list. And now Drew is one of a very small number of people I want to talk to about moving forward. I thought he did a very good job. I thought he was able to put a balance of pushing and prodding to get the best team on the ice every night, with also throwing a little bit of hope out there and a blind eye to putting young players in situations they haven't been in and living with the results. And I think that's how you grow. we had some young players do some really good things, and we had some young players make young mistakes that cost us, but that's part of growth. And that's what I thought Drew did a great job of doing. And so to answer that question, Drew was a finalist for the head coaching position, and that list isn't extensive.
Doug, I was going to get into that, all part of it, but do you need some time to take before you make this decision, or do you feel like you've got a pretty good pulse of where you want to go?
I think we have a good pulse. I'm fortunate to have an inner circle of people in our organization that I trust, that have a lot of experience. That we've been talking about this for a number of months on where we want to go to, and as that was going, as I said, Drew was expanding his own resume. It's not something I think is going to happen over the next 4 or 5 days. You want to. I'm not going to get specific names, but some of the names that I want to talk to aren't available, and their teams are playing, and some of the names that I want to talk to, I'm going to give a little bit of time to. So it's not something. We certainly will have a head coach in well before the draft. I'm thinking well before June 1st, but I'm not putting a timeline on it in that, because it's not an extensive group. I think when you look at maybe some of the coaches, the people in this situation, they're just starting the process, and they might have 15 names and might want to talk to 8 or 9. I've whittled that down to, as I said, a very, very small number.
Would you consider consulting with the league to find out about Joel Quenneville's status?
I'm not going to get into individual names on what we're going to do on anyone, quite honestly.
What's kind of the criteria for you for the Nets head coach?
I think it's someone that we can that understands where we're at in our maturation process, that wants to push and build and create a foundation that can stand the test of time. Wants to have the respect of the veteran players, but the ability for the younger players to express themselves and grab a bigger role. And that's a difficult task. I think when you can go to a certain coach and you know what their mindset is, I have the team that I think can win the Stanley Cup, and here's the guy that can get us over the next 3 or 4%. I believe in our team, but we're not at that level quite yet. So that removes a coach that would fill that criteria. So this coach we want to come in, has an understanding of pushing and prodding and expectations of a fan base that should have expectations, but also knowing that we are in the process of doing something that's sustainable and allowing learning and growth to happen.
Doug, along those lines, you said at the beginning of the year you wanted the team to be competitive, but also put the focus on the future. Now that you've had a full year to see how that played out, even though you finished outside the playoffs and you might get a middle of the first round draft pick, do you still feel like that's the best plan for the organization and sustainable moving for the next couple of years?
Yeah, only because, JR, you can do what we're doing, or you can get committed to one of the other two ways. Getting committed to winning the championship is trading those players that we've acquired, getting into that market and trying to push with a group that we believe is in our core, in our prime, and is going to push for it. Or, like, I want to say this politely, I'm not sure our fan base, and I'm not sure I could handle it. Take 15 more losses off of this season and do that for 5 more years. I'm not really sure we want to have a point total in the 50s and 60s for 4 or 5 more consecutive years to build something that might be good in 2035. So we're trying to do something that's difficult, which is stay competitive and find good players and make good trades, and win a championship. But I personal belief is that going the other way and being a 50 to 60 point team until 2029 to gain those assets. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh, and they're at the tail end of what they did with, getting Malkin and getting Crosby and getting Fleury and getting Whitney. That's 4 years. That's 4 years of top picks. Taves and Kane, there's pain that goes into those things. and so I'm not in the position to think that's the direction the St. Louis Blues should go in. Obviously, I make recommendations or a game plan, and I filter that upstairs, and I do show them the 3 different categories. One is to move our first round picks, to move our top prospects, to get into a market and get a player, or the other one is to move anyone with any value or high value and replace them with American League players. Because if you took our top 4 players, I'll let you pick whoever they are. If you took our top 4 players and traded them, and you got young assets and futures, and you replace them with American Hockey League players or less, we can get to 50 points. I can get us there. Trust me. It's getting us out of that after is the hard part. But I just don't think that's where we need to go. So that's a long answer to a simple question. We're going to stay with the path we're on.
Doug, a lot of your players are sort of locked in. How much change do you anticipate in the roster for next year? And if there's not a ton of change, how do you guys improve enough to be a playoff team next year?
Well, it's going to come from internal growth, as we talked about a second ago. Is that I was probably too open a year ago on a time length of retooling or what it's going to take. Like the history goes, though, in 22, 23, I thought we were a good team that underperformed, but I thought 23, 24 was going to be the first year of the next wave, because the players that if we had to perform to their maximum ability, they would have gone on a playoff run last year, and then they'd be free agents and they'd be gone. So this was year 1 of something that's not going to be finished after year 1. And so we can look to be prudent in the free agent market. We need internal growth. We need, some of our players, veteran players, to play a little bit better. Some of our younger players to grow a little bit. The coach has to get a little bit better. The manager has to get a little bit better. But we're not going to reinvent the wheel. There is a plan in place, and I'm willing to stick through that plan. And one of the things we talked about, I think, in September is how do you judge a good season? And I understand our fan base, and I do understand that they want to see W's. They don't want to see the old college try. But when I evaluate it, I did see a lot of positives. I saw a young player like Jake Neighbors go from a call-up player to a fourth-line player to almost a 30-goal scorer. I saw Joel Hofer go to his first year in the NHL. Looks like a pretty good goalie. We saw Scott Prunovich play, and now we know what we have and closer to what we have. So I found positive things in outside of wins and losses that I think we can build off of.
Do you think the roster will be largely the same, though? Is that your expectation?
I think how do I want to say it? I don't want to say something that's going to come back and I'm going to answer to in September. I just think that we're on a path, and we're willing to stick with that path. And if we can improve our team under the guidelines that we think gives our long-term outlook and our long-term goals the best chance to have success, we'll do it.
You talk a lot about the internal growth. One player that gets talked about a lot is Jordan Kyrou. How do you assess his season, and what kind of growth would you like to see from him going into next season?
Yeah, another 30-goal season. Obviously, I thought he went through stretches this year where the puck didn't go in for him at the start of the year. I think if you look at all the fancy stats, he had a lot of chances, and they weren't going in, and then they start going in, and everybody gets off his back a little bit. So I think consistency maybe is something, but he's a game-changing player and a game-breaking player that has become a lightning rod for whatever reason. But I sat up here, and I'm going to say 2017, and Jay Bannister was a lightning rod, and everybody hated him. And then he left our franchise, and everyone thought, how are we going to live without Jay Bannister? So these are ebbs and flows. A year ago, Colton Pranko and Jordan Bennington were finished, and now they're not finished. So I can't get sucked into this daily, he's a good player, he's a bad player thing that's there. I have to have a longer term approach, and if you want to have a relationship with someone, you better be willing to go through tough times if you want to go through good times with them. If you're only committed to someone through the good times, it's going to be a difficult relationship for you to be happy in.
Coach, not Coach. Army, you talked
That
about...
will never happen, Coach, by the way.
You talked about internal leadership, and a big part of that is the captain of the team. How would you assess, maybe from your point of view, how Braden Shen did this year, leading this group, especially through a coaching change and some struggles?
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job. I think the one thing that when I look back on him, when I talk to him, and is that breathe, enjoy the process, and don't put too much of this on yourself. I thought he cares so much about the team and so much about every individual that it's hard to do all that and still be the best you can be on the ice. And I thought he did a great job at it. I think next year he's gonna be able to pick his battles a little bit more, pick his battles with the manager, pick his battles with the coach, pick his battles with his teammates a little better, and that just comes from maturation. But a proud player and a Stanley Cup champion that's asked to be the captain of a team that's going through a transition, it's difficult. And then you throw in a coaching change mid-season. It's not like I made this easy on him, and it wasn't by I didn't say let's name Shen our captain, see how hard I can make it on him. But I'm not surprised that it ended up where there was a lot of turmoil that he had to deal with, and I thought he did a really good job, and I think, quite honestly, with the support of Robert Thomas and Pranko and Falk, that eased that for him, and I think they've all grown, and they're all going to get better at it, and next year is going to be way easier for them than this year was, and that's growth.
Doug, you mentioned when you made the coaching change that you wanted accountability and competitiveness from the Nets head coach. How do you think Drew handled that?
I thought he did a nice job at that, and the last time I was sitting in here, we were talking about the coach, and it was a coaching change, and then I reflect back on what was said after that. Change came because there was a feeling that the message wasn't getting through, and it was frustrating to hear that because of how much respect I have for Craig, but I think also that change made everybody get a little more laser focused in every area. It made the manager get more focused. It made the players get more focused. And I thought those were natural byproducts of competitiveness and opportunity. And I thought Drew provided both of those things. And I thought he did a good job at that. But I did think that accountability was taken up. But I think that was going to come regardless. It wasn't really Drew that took it up. It was the players that understood that they let a guy that everybody in this city loved and they love playing for and I love working with. We let him down, but that's evolution of sport. That's not new to any one organization. So I thought the players did a great job of seizing that, and I think we might have been 11 games over 500 with Drew, and that's good coaching, but that's also laser focus of players wanting to be different than they were before.
Understanding what you said to Martin's question, but you don't know what the roster will look like in September, you're going to stick to the plan. The defense was better this year. I know last year you said that if we watch the same thing this year, there's definitely going to be changes in 24-25. How do you evaluate the defense this year, and do you anticipate trying to make it look any different?
Yeah, it will look, well, it looked a little different because Scotty was healthy and we got him a lot of games and we saw what that looks like. We're going to look to see if we can push and prod and improve, but there was an improvement back there. I think some of the improvement came from how our number one defenseman was perceived at the end of last year and the way he's perceived now, I assume it's different. The questions are different, at least. I think Tucker showed he can help us out a little bit. I think Letty and Pranko look like they can be a good pair. I think I was really excited for Kessel's growth and improvement, a player that we weren't talking about at the start of last year came in and looks like a legitimate NHL player. So there's going to be internal growth, and if we can improve it other ways, we'll look at doing it. Again, I don't want to say anything that I can't back up on change.
Doug, with where you guys are at as a franchise, do you expect to be a cap team next year?
It's not a goal not to be, and it's not a goal to be. You know, like if there's a player, if there's a situation that I can take to Mr. Stillman and he signs off on that adds a player with X amount of millions of dollars that takes us to the cap, I'll do it. But I'll get no benefit of spending money poorly so I can say next year, well, look at we're at the cap. You know, like we're trying. Trying stupid isn't trying. That's just being stupid. And so if the owners have never said, no, you can't spend, my job is to provide a roadmap where it's spending wisely.
Doug, did any of the prospects, and we know you've never rushed any of these guys to get here sooner than they should be, did any of them have years this year where some of them may expedite the process, though?
Yeah, I would say from last year's draft, like Bolduc and Dean and Kessel are here now. They finished here, so I'm going to exclude those guys. I can talk to them after if you want. But last year's draft was really the first draft of whatever the working in the next generation. And the one player that looks like he's going to push for a really good look in training camp is Dvorsky. Partly because he's in North America and the other guys are in Sweden. But Dvorsky, when I saw what he did at the World Junior, what we see him doing against his peer group in the Ontario Hockey League, and how we've seen players that do what he did in the Ontario League progress to the NHL, there's a path there. But that path won't be rushed, so we can say that we have young players in the NHL. And that's for Bolduc, and that's for Dean, and that's for Kessel, quite honestly. Like, they ended the season here. The only way they guarantee they started here next year is to have a great summer and a great training camp, because you know we have to push them to be better than they were when we ended the year, and it's up to them to do the work. Now I have the utmost faith they're going to do it, but it's not. This isn't a charity case that we're running here in the extent that in the sense that to show growth we have to put players in the NHL that aren't ready for it. I think, Lou, you and I have talked about this before. The NHL fails as many players as players fail the NHL, and I don't want to fail these guys.
And Doug, does the Snuggerud decision affect your kind of future planning? Was he kind of in next year's mix ideally?
He would have been in the mix to the level that Bolduc and Dean are, that there's an expectation that they're going to give. There's not a hope that they make the team. There's an expectation they're going to give every opportunity to. So he would have been in that group ahead of the Stenberg-Lindstein, where they're a year or two away. Snuggy's going to be in mini this time next year, one way or the other, in the Final Four in a Blues uniform.
Doug, your recent history of hiring head coaches is guys with previous NHL experience. Is that a prerequisite for this search here?
No.
Two questions. One, you brought up Dvorsky. How much do you think he benefited? I mean, obviously the numbers were great, but going from Europe to playing junior this year?
I thought it was a great benefit, and Jared, that's a really good question, because you never know how it's going to work. The one thing I don't like about, but I said don't like, that concern you is Dvorsky's had 5 different coaches in the last 5 years in 5 different cities and 5 different leagues. Like, this kid's had no stability. And it's because he's better. He gets better every year. And so he went to a situation he thought was going to be really good in Sweden. It was really bad. And then, so you're hoping it's better when he gets to the OHL, and he made it a great situation. So the way that he was perceived in his draft year as a top player top 10 pick. That's where we took him. They usually have good years in the OHL, and he certainly didn't disappoint. And I think there's going to be debate if the draft was held again this year, where would he go? Probably, in our opinion, maybe a little bit higher, but certainly no lower.
I just had one other quick one. I know this isn't on your radar. You know, we get asked this question a lot, so I figured I'd pass it off to you. The option of a buyout, you know, with players that you have, do you even consider that this offseason with any of your players?
Yeah, I consider it every year. You know, it's not. This isn't an ego thing where we don't buy somebody out. It has to make economic sense. Not just economic sense. There has to be a plan to have a better team because you're doing it. And it's my fault because I do make statements and then I don't retract them, or I don't like change the, like, it's like, well, we don't offer no move clauses. Well, that's a lie. Like I said, I don't like to do it. And we don't offer signing bonus. Well, that's a lie. We've done it. So we've done it in the past. You know, when I say that's not our first preference to do these things. So it's not our first preference to buy players out. Maybe this is the ego part. It is a business, and it's hard. I don't know. It's just like my kids just say, like, give me $1,000. I want to burn it. Like, I'm not going to give you $1,000. You know, and when you buy a player out, it's like burning money. And so I have an obligation to make sure it's the right thing to do. But no, nothing is off the table.
Another question or two?
Doug, on Dvorsky, is he eligible to go to the AHL next year?
Yes, yes, just because he was drafted from Europe. Yeah.
Would that be a logical step for him? I mean, seeing what he's done in the OHL, and if he's not here in St. Louis.
He thinks he's going to be here in St. Louis, and I'm not going to dash that dream. But if it's not, we'll find a nice home for him.
What about your plans for Pavel Buchnevich? Will you approach him over the summer and try to lock him up, or see how the season plays out?
Yeah, we'll approach him. I'm a big Pavel fan. Again, with free agency, it's a two-way street. He's just turned, I think, 29 yesterday. You know, if I was Pavel, I'd want to sit with the manager and talk to him. Not as a like, he's at the age now where he should ask me hard questions about the direction of this organization, because he's at the age now where winning well, I shouldn't say that. I assume winning is going to be very important, and he wants to know how quickly we can win. That, you know, because he's going to get his money. You know, he's good enough, he's going to get his money. So I would like him to be here. I have to sell him on why, and then we have to sell each other on why we can be comfortably uncomfortable with the financial deal that we make. But I'm a big Pavel fan.
Doug, just when you look at the 5-on-5 possession numbers from the season, what did you think was missing from your team at even strength there?
The one area where I like to see us get more comfortable at is putting pucks on the net from high scoring areas. I think as you guys that follow us closely, you'll see us get the puck into a high scoring area, then pass it out of it for a better play. This league isn't always about a better play. And the other area where I think we can improve, and we saw it with Jake Neighbors and Torpachenko to a level, you got to go like you know, you got to go to the hard areas to score. Like Jake Neighbors, what did he get? How many goals? 27 goals. From me to this microphone away, total distance. Like he goes to the areas to score that are hard. And so those numbers, I think if we put pucks at the net and go to that net with greater urgency and frequency, that's going to improve. I don't think possession time is important, but if it's possession time without any results, it's just hanging onto the puck longer before you give it away.
When you talk about those types of players, is that kind of the characteristic that you're looking for free agents or trades or what have you to bring in here?
Well, we want to get out of our own players first, but yeah, I think, you know, what we talk about, and this is, people are going to say this is a good stat or a bad stat since 2008. I don't think, you know, that we have one Hall of Famer in our group, but we've had a lot of wins. I know how I know how the St. Louis Blues are built. Or I know how we have to be built to have success. Unless we want to go, what Jay and I asked about earlier, unless we want to go to the bottom for a number of years, that's sort of where you get your Hall of Famers from. Like you have a much greater likelihood to get a Hall of Famer for there. So we need strength in numbers, and strength in numbers comes from Bobby Plager playing for the jersey or the crest on the front and the name on the back. That's always been the identity of the Blues since I've been here. That's how we've had our success, and that's the path I hope that we take moving forward. Because as I said, it's a lot less like I'd love to draft. I'd love for Dvorsky to be a Hall of Famer. I'd love for Robert Thomas to be a Hall of Famer. I'd love for whoever to be. Just the reality is that it usually comes like from 1, 2, or 3 in the draft, and I don't want to pick that guy. No, I'm not afraid of winning the lottery if they want to do that part of it, but I don't want to earn it. How's that?
One
Yeah,
very minor
sure.
one on Theo Lindstein. Obviously, you guys signed him. What's kind of the path for him moving forward into next year as well?
I would see most of those guys going back to Europe and continuing to grow there. There is an agreement in the IIHF too that they have to go, or they can go back. They will go back. Again, we're not looking to rush guys in. The American League's a hard league to play in, not because it's a hard league in the sense that there's a lot of downtime for an 18, 19-year-old. And I just say we're talking about Dvorsky doing it. If he's not in the NHL, I think he can grow just from him and Stenberg, and that group can grow very well where they're at. Now, if things change and they want to come over here and give it a shot, like we're not going to say no. But again, we're playing the long game here.
Last question.
Yep.
Blue here.
Doug, along those lines, with the guys in Europe, how much differently do you have to evaluate what they're doing over there as opposed to the guys you have over here in North America?
I don't think any differently. Like the harder part, it's harder. Like we see all their shifts. We get their shifts every week. We watch every shift. It's harder to get to see them, and it's harder to their mindset of how much they practice, how much they play is different than junior hockey. The hard part for the young top European players at 18 and 19 is they play in men's league and they don't get much ice time, and then they don't want to go down to the league to get more ice time because they feel they've underperformed. It's a delicate balance for those players, and what we want to see is continued growth, and that's where our development staff comes in. The hard part, it's not the NFL where you draft them and you see them and you know they're there and you can say it's success or failure within a year. These, like, and I projected a chart out to our ownership group, and it wasn't just our players. Like, when do players that are drafted within 15% plus or minus play their 11th game, their 50th game, their 100th game? It takes a while, and we're playing the long game. Again, thanks everybody for your support this year, and we'll see you later. Go ahead.
I guess looking at it in totality, since you've taken over to now, how would you feel like the team performed and the job you were able to lead them in the direction that you're at now?
Yeah. I think when I look at the overall picture and certainly the circumstances that I came in under, I'm really proud of this group. You know, number one, I'm proud of the leadership core. You know, Shanner, Falker, Robbie, Perry, and how they welcomed me. And then, you know, the group of the rest of the group of the players and how they, you know, came each day, how professional they were, bought into what we were trying to do as a staff and what the organization had asked of them after the change. And certainly with my coaching staff, how they, came to work every day and how professional they were. Certainly we're sitting here, talking about a season that we're all disappointed in, and we certainly want to be, at this point of the year, getting ourselves ready to play the first game of the playoffs. But when I look back at the year, and I think, when I reflect over the summer about this group, I have no question in my mind. And certainly, there's going to be some things that we learned that we have to get, and we will get better from. I strongly believe in this group, and I think at this time next year we're going to be, having a press conference about who we're playing in the first round of the playoffs.
Drew, Army said that he told you that you're definitely one of the candidates moving forward. First of all, what was it like to hear that? Obviously deserving after the way you led the team, but then secondly, there's other candidates. What's it like to sit and wait to find out how this is resolved?
I think I've said this before. I mean, I've been very lucky with the opportunity that the ownership here, that Doug and the rest of the management have given me, not only coming here mid-season, but giving me my first opportunity to coach pro hockey in the American Hockey League. I'm like I said, I'm proud of the way these players conducted themselves since I've come in. I'm certainly a better coach because of the group that was here, and without that opportunity that Tom, the rest of the ownership group, and Doug have given me, I certainly wouldn't be sitting up here in front of you guys today. So I'm very appreciative of that. I understand the process and what they're going through, and when I first came in, there was no promises made. There was no expectations other than getting this team to where we all believed it could be, and starting that process with the players, and working on the habits and details in our game that we all knew we had to get better at to start to have success. And I'm proud that myself and our coaching staff and the players bought into that, and I think we saw a lot of good things happen that we can build on for next year.
Drew, this is probably a little clunky, but what would be kind of your pitch to Doug in order to remain here and be the Nets head coach?
Well, I don't know if there's a pitch. I mean, I think Doug knows me well enough. Like, we've spent a lot of time together over the last 4 months. Previous to that, we didn't have a working relationship like we've had over the last 4 months. So I think there was a lot of learning and a lot of growing between myself and Doug on that process. And I think now he knows me better as a person, as an individual, and also as a coach. So I think he knows the coach that he's getting, and I think for me personally, the process of what I've gone through as a coach, whether it was in junior hockey, the American Hockey League, or the NHL, I continue to get better, and I believe I still have a lot of growth in myself as a coach in the National Hockey League. I'm looking forward to whatever's next. Certainly for me, the number one option would be, to stay with the St. Louis Blues and be the head coach of this hockey club. But I understand that there's a process to go through, and I'm, more than happy and proud to be a part of that process. And, I think, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of people that got me to this point, and there's a lot of people that aren't here up with me, whether it's my family members, previous coaches, and then certainly the coaches that I had here that worked with me day to day and made me a better person and a better coach for it.
Ideally for you, it would have been best if he would have came in and said, "You're the guy. The job is yours," obviously. But when you say no promises were made, were you comfortable with that situation?
Yeah, of course. And I think, there's never a perfect situation, I think, when you're a coach. And I think for me, the situation that I came into was tough. There's no question about that. That was a tough situation. But when I look back at it, I strongly believe that, that I thrived in this situation, and I became a better coach and a better person from it. And this was an outstanding learning experience for me. And moving forward, I'm, going to be able to take a lot of positives from this experience that I've gone through with this hockey club and this organization, and move forward. And I'm looking forward to the next challenge.
Just on the player side of things, what kind of progress did you see from Jordan Kyrou in different areas of his game?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first came in with Jordan, obviously we went through that tough time with him, and him and I had a lot of individual conversations, just about, not about hockey, just about, life in itself, and just man-to-man conversations about how we're going to get through this together, and as a team, as an individual, and that I was here to support him through that. And then certainly looking at parts of his game. The one thing, I'm proud of a lot of the players, all of the players on our team this year, but Jordan, really, when you look at the last, month, and playing those meaningful games and how well he played, we moved him around the lineup a bit, and we found a spot with him with Bucci and Sauter, and I'm proud of the way that he played, and I was really excited about how he played in these last month to 6 weeks, where it was really meaningful games, and I'm excited for Jordan moving forward. Like he is going to be a key part of this team's success moving forward, and I think he's still got a lot to give.
Drew, in all the times that you talked to us, you always felt like you were a proponent. We're fighting for the playoffs.
Yep.
We're going to battle for it, and you made it to game number 80. So ultimately, in your eyes, we're sitting in this situation. Why do you feel like you fell short then?
Well, I think I'm sure, whether it's the players or Doug touched on it, I think when you look back at the game, and I think there's probably a handful of games when you look back, obviously the game against Columbus, the 2 games against San Jose, there's 6 points there that would, possibly make a difference. We don't know. But, I think, the inconsistencies in our play, and again, I go back to what I had said before. Those are learning lessons that we can reflect on this summer, that certainly, and whenever those come up, I mean, they came up while I was here, but I think it goes to show you how difficult this league is, and how unforgiving it is, and how important games are, regardless of what time they are in the season, whether it's in October or November or March, April. They're all extremely important, and those points matter. And I think as a group, I think we're going to become better for it, going through those process and understanding and identifying those games that we have to be better in.
Drew, you obviously had to jump in on the fly, not many practice days. If you were to get the job, would you be able to implement a lot more, in training camp, going into the season? Would the team look much different structurally than what we saw this season?
Yeah, no question. I think for myself, I've already, over the last 2 weeks have been identifying things that we have to get better in structurally within our team, and I think any coach should be doing that regardless of their situation, and like we've touched on, I don't know what my situation is, but right now, leaving here today, I'm still the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, and it's my mandate to continue that process of getting myself ready and prepared, and getting my staff members prepared for next season until we know otherwise, obviously. So I think most definitely when you ask me, would there be changes systematically, we would make changes. Would they be massive changes? I don't believe they'd be massive changes, but we've identified certainly some things in our game that we have to get better at structurally. And I think, habit-wise, we can continue to build on our habits and our details in our game, certainly away from the puck. We saw some growth in it, but I still think there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of growth in our game in that aspect.
Robert Thomas, where do you think he's at in his evolution as a number 1 center?
Well, I think, Robbie has really proven that he's an elite player in this league, obviously with the All-Star nomination, but the way he played this year, the amount of minutes he played this year, the amount of meaningful minutes he played this year against top lines, and how he competed and how he showed up to play every day. You know, and I don't know what the ceiling is for Robbie, but I still think we haven't seen his ceiling. And I think there's a player there that's going to continue to get better, that's going to continue to grow in his role as a leader, and certainly become, you know, continue to build on his game and get better, because I still think there's quite a high ceiling there.
Drew, do you feel like, you know, you hear a lot that goaltending is the backbone of all successful teams. Do you feel like you have that here and you can build off of from the back on out?
Yeah. You know, obviously, I have relationships with both Binner and Joel. You know, Binner and I had a conversation today about, you know, our kind of evolution as him as a player and me as a coach. You know, my first coaching as an assistant coach was when he was in Owen Sound as a goalie. You know, and then once I came to the American League with St. Louis, I had Binner in San Antonio, and then as a head coach, you know, I have Binner here. So I've seen the evolution of Binner. Extremely proud of the person that he has become. I've seen a lot of growth, obviously, in him as a man and as a goaltender. You know, to me, both him and Joel are probably one of the best tandems, if not the best tandems, in the NHL right now. And I think it's up to us as coaches to, you know, start to modify our game a little bit and tactically to make it a little bit easier on them. Certainly, all teams have to lean on their goalies at times, and I have no question that these two moving forward are going to be a big part of this team's success. You know, Joel, I've had him since day one in Springfield. You know, what an outstanding person, an outstanding competitor, and for a young goalie, you know, really proud of the way he's come in. You know, and him and Binner have worked extremely well together. Certainly gave us opportunities to win every night, and sometimes stole some games for us. And you know, as I said before, I think this duo is going to continue to be one of the best in the league for quite a long time.
With Braden Shen, how did you see him adapt to being a captain for the first time?
Yeah, so, you know, with Shenner, you know, obviously when I came in, I think being a captain at any level for the first time is tough, and I've been through that. I think what Shenner went through this year was not only being a first-year captain, but with the change in the coaching, that can be extremely hard on him. The one thing I will say about Shenner and how proud I was of him, certainly in the last 8 weeks, and how he played for our team in different situations, whether it was at wing or at center. I think it shows you the growth of him as a person, as a captain, as a player. You know, I thought he played some of our best hockey in the last eight weeks here, where it was really meaningful games, and I think that says a lot about the person and the character and the growth of him as a captain. And I think he's gone through a lot of the ups and downs now, and he's matured because of it, and he's a better person and he's a better captain of it, and I think he's going to be a big part of the team's success next year.
Drew, from an offensive standpoint, you had, 4 or 5 guys at 25 goals or more.
Yep.
If there were any deficiencies, were you missing maybe those 10 to 15, 15 to 20 guys maybe?
No, I don't. You know, I mean, you can always sit back and say that you need more goal scoring, or you have to let in the puck less in your net. I think we had a lot of excellent performances from our top players and scoring. You know, I think on the offensive side, I think sometimes, you know, for our group, sometimes at times we would get too cute, and I think we have to simplify and be a little bit more direct. And I think just being more direct, or keeping the puck moving, the offensive zone more often can create a little bit more, you know, offense and more opportunities to be able to score. And certainly that would be something moving forward forward that we'd have to look at as a staff to, really dial that in to give our guys more opportunity to create offense. But I don't think it was, a personnel issue. I think it's something that we have to grow and get better at as a team.
Colton Parayko proved to you maybe
Yeah.
that he's a bona fide #1 guy, and that group as a whole, how much did they improve this year?
Yeah, I think when I think about Perry, just from day one when I came here, the amount of minutes he played, the matchups that he had to face, how he played, the professionalism that he came with every day, such a an energetic guy within the room, a real treat as a coach to have on your team. But he just played with a lot of stability and gave us a lot of stability back there, regardless of who he played against or who he was playing with. And it says a lot about him and his growth. I know, last year was a tough season for him, but the character to come back and have a season like that, from day one to the end of the season, tells you a lot about that player. And he's still a young player, and I think you're going to see a player that's going to continue to grow and get better. Good. Thank you.